So yeah, it's been a few years since I spoke at BitBlockBoom, but I am back and excited to talk. And today I want to talk about hodling for good. Um, is the first slide up right now? Okay. So anyway, yeah, my name is Michael Goldstein. I run the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, teach about the economics and history of Bitcoin, and I'm here to talk about hodling. Now, hodling is something that is wildly popular, and yet at the same time, a lot of people like to frown upon it in many different ways, both Bitcoin skeptics and even some Bitcoiners as well. So you get people saying that hoarding is greedy and selfish. You're just trying to get number go up. You might get called a free rider for hoarding. If you're too into number go up, it's because you just care about Bitcoin being a stock ticker and you don't care about the freedom maximalism and so on and so forth. You also have people who they're constantly encouraging you to spend your Bitcoin. Give them your sats and it'll be good for Bitcoin. The thing is Bitcoin is the hardest asset in the known universe. Already about almost 95% of it has been mined, and no more is going to be coming out after the 21 million. And that means that any increasing demand in Bitcoin, the price will naturally go up, which also means people naturally understand that this is a good that they can hold on to, and its value is likely to increase, and increase at a pretty substantial rate. And this leads to a meme that Stefan Livera does not care for, but he can take it up with the president. People come to the conclusion, never sell your Bitcoin. So we find ourselves hodling for good. We want to hodl forever. Thank you. Any questions? So I actually, number go up is great. I'm a big proponent of number go up technology, the underlying technology of the Bitcoin blockchain. But I want to talk more about what that actually means. The people who say, oh, you need to spend your Bitcoin, they often say that, Bitcoin is supposed to be a medium of exchange and you're using it as a store of value. And I say that it actually is a medium of exchange. But the purpose of a medium of exchange is a good that you acquire for future exchange. And when you're using it as a so-called store of value, you're just using it for future exchange much longer into the future than they would prefer because they want your sats. And but I want to think about, what good is it? What good does hodling do for future exchange? And why does it, really benefit us? And that seems like a silly question, but I want to explore that. And the first thing is that we want to hodl not just for good, but we want to hodl for better goods. We want a higher purchasing price, a purchasing power of Bitcoin because you imagine that you can have more stuff. And in fact, there's an important thing in economics. Many of you have probably read the Bitcoin Standard. He talks a lot about time preference. Time preference is how much you are unwilling to delay gratification of needs. So if you have a high time preference, you want everything now. If you have a low time preference, you can wait until the future. Hans Hermann Hoppe points out a very interesting thing in a essay on time preference, where he points out that you can't even have so-called loanable funds, basically resources that you can use for the production and finance of other goods, unless you actually have savings beforehand. Also, you need to have the ability to imagine that there is something better in the future you can make. And not only that, but that what you are going to make is going to be more valuable than that which you put aside. So you might have to put it aside just because you need to eat in the process of making the thing, or because you need to actually put it into the production process. So it's important to understand all capital production and accumulation begins with savings. You cannot spend what you haven't already hodled, and you cannot put to use what you have not already hodled. All of financing begins with self-financing. It begins with savings. Hodling is at the basis of all finance and all capital accumulation. But there's another important point in economics, which is time preference can never truly be zero. You cannot not spend. You always have to eat. You need shelter. You need clothing. You need all of these things. You need to be able to live. And all of the time that it takes for Bitcoin to increase in its purchasing power, so you can get your nice things, you do need to spend. But the question is, how can we think about what to spend on, and what does that mean to be, spending our Bitcoin in terms of, what good does it bring us? And first, Bitcoiners can think about minimizing present consumption. And I would say don't spend dollars either. The question here is not, should I spend my dollars or my sats? The question is, should I save more or should I spend more? And a lot of Bitcoiners, they choose to start living like Diogenes here, and basically live in a barrel, practically homeless. I've been wearing this same shirt to Bitcoin events for over a decade now. But you hodl well enough. Alexander the Great, when he met Diogenes, he said, "If I was not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." And I don't know, perhaps with Bitcoin hodling, you can be both. But the other side of this is when you're minimizing that present consumption, you have to pay for food and so on and so forth. You also want to maximize value creation, because that is what allows you to have a cash flow to take care of those needs so that you don't deplete your savings in the process. And perhaps if you maximize value creation, you focus on finding other people's present real needs and addressing them, you can actually stack more sats and hold on to more sats. And an important thing to note on this is any job is a Bitcoin job if you save in Bitcoin. Don't think that you need to go work for a Bitcoin company. Literally any job you have, if it's producing a real good for a real person, it's a Bitcoin job if you're putting that into Bitcoin savings. The next thing you can be doing is demanding higher quality goods. You can only get nice things if you demand nice things. When you stop demanding certain stuff, you decide that you no longer need your chairs. Well, when you start liquidating that, that means that it is less profitable to be making chairs, and the factors of production that go into making chairs start going into the things that you do like. And so in some ways, this is a way to reshape the economy at the margins to what you want in the world. And of course, you can sit on your savings and wait until the world provides you with the goods you want at the price you want. But you can only do this to a certain extent. And the reason is the economy doesn't magically know exactly what it is that you want, unless you actually put something out there that tells them. So in order to actually make things, it takes time and it takes actual productive energy. And so part of maximizing value creation, both for other people and for yourself, is if you see a world that you actually want, you can build that change you wish to see in the world by accumulating capital goods. And so by spending sats on capital goods, you can do a better job. You can get a better computer that actually allows you to get more sats because you're able to do more computer work that provides people with value. But there also might be things about the world that you imagine into the future, and they're not going to just make themselves. You might have to be the one. You might be the only person in the world with that vision. And in order to get the ball rolling towards that and to get it in time for when you want it, you might have to get started now. And so hodling is needed. You can hodl long enough for the capital goods to be at an affordable price, so you can get that ball rolling towards shaping the world in the way you want. And this doesn't just apply to physical goods and such. This also applies to human capital, to education, to culture, to ideas. These things take time to develop, and it's best to get started now. But then there's a question. We said, demanding better quality goods, wanting to see the change in the world. This itself requires having a vision of what the world ought to be. How do we even come to know what's good? And a fourth thing that hodlers can be thinking about is leisure, being able to turn your mind inward and upward towards higher things. Now, Aristotle said a man should be capable of engaging in business and war, but still more capable of living in peace and leisure. He should be able to do what is necessary and useful, but still more should he do what is noble. Leisure is not mere idleness. It's not mere entertainment or amusement. The Greek word was skole, where we also derive school. So you can think education. Leisure is about the contemplative life. Leisure is when we pursue the arts, sciences, music, philosophy. Leisure is when we develop tastes, manners, and most importantly, virtues. Leisure is something when we have worked enough to get the sats that we need for the basic needs we have. Leisure is when we can step away and start to focus on the higher things, where we can develop these ideas of what we actually want the world to be. Joseph Pieper, a German philosopher, wrote a fantastic book I recommend called Leisure, the Basis of Culture. And he says, leisure is a form of that stillness that is the necessary preparation for accepting reality. Only the person who is still can hear, and whoever is not still cannot hear. Such stillness as this is not mere soundlessness or a dead muteness. It means rather that the soul's power as real, of responding to the real, a co-respondence, eternally established in nature, has not yet descended into words. Leisure is the disposition of receptive understanding, of contemplative beholding and immersion in the real. So when you engage in leisure, you work all day so that you have what you need, and you're able to put away even an hour or two of your day to focus on the higher things. You can develop a vision of what it actually is that you want in the world, so you can start shaping the economy in that. What I would say is you can only demand nice things if you are capable of knowing what nice things are. So you need to make your sats worth something. It is up to you to make your sats worth something more than Lambo. So I'd say make yourself worthy of better goods. And so take that time to think about the world, to contemplate, to engage in a contemplative life, so that you can envision that world that you actually want to build. And this goes to both us trying to get a hold of more sats and the people trying to get a hold of more of your sats. If you want people's sats, you have to give them something they value more than the sats. And once again, it's up to you to place the bar of what that means. Now, we've talked a lot about what does it mean for you as an individual, reshaping the world in your image of what is the good. But I want to talk about society as a whole as well, and talking about hodling for the common good. Guido Hulsmann, many of you may have read his book, The Ethics of Money Production. He has another fantastic book just recently come out called Abundance, Generosity, in the State. And in this, he talks about how the market process itself is full of a process of creating gratuity in the world. And a gratuitous good, he says, is not compensation. It is not received in exchange for something that the beneficiary is or has done. It is not a payment, a prize, a reward, or a tribute. It comes without any apparent good reason. It comes for free. It is gratis. So these are things that happen in the market and arise from the natural market process without anyone asking for it or even intending it to be the outcome. It is just an extra benefit of every act of exchange. And he says the market economy produces a panoply of economic goods which are not paid for by their beneficiaries. Though these gratuitous benefits are not always attended, often ignored, and sometimes not even desired. Every act of exchange, when you trade with someone else, each of you is walking away wealthier than you had before. And now the world also exists in a world where there are, two more wealthy people to be able to share their knowledge and outcomes. So I want to give some Bitcoin examples of this. So increased savings, meaning you're hodling more, increases the Bitcoin price, even just a little bit at the margins. And what this means is everything else has a lower price. So everyone else who was saving up for some better good, they can now better afford it. Likewise, increased savings increases the Bitcoin price, which also increases investment opportunities, the ability to go set off on a new entrepreneurial venture you hadn't been able to before. And this leads to increased capital stock and an increased ability to satisfy human wants. Saving is a bit like investing in the economy as a whole. It is not merely sitting on your money and doing nothing. That sitting and doing nothing actually has this effect of giving the economy more purchasing power that it can go use to do economic production. And it is only by virtue of doing that that there is even a return on the hoarding, because of the fact that the purchasing power comes from the output of that economic production that was unleashed by this process. Hoppe, in that same essay, points out a very astonishing idea that arises from this. And he says, in an exchange economy, the saver investor also contributes to a lowering of the time preference rate of non-savers. With the accumulation of capital goods, the relative scarcity of labor services increases, and wage rates, ceteris paribus, will rise. Higher wage rates imply a rising supply of present goods for previous non-savers. Thus, even those individuals who were previously non-savers will see their personal time preferences fall. So what that means is when you're hodling, you're actually, not only are you lowering your own time preference by virtue of deferring more consumption until later for the purposes of getting an increased purchasing power, you are actually lowering the time preference of everyone else in the economy by virtue of the fact that that increased, what we described before, the increased economic output means that the marginal value of those goods for everyone else has gone down. So even with what they have at this moment, they have more that they can get out of it. And this applies not just to plain economic goods, but also knowledge and technology. As more things happen in the economy and people learn from one another, this knowledge is freely moving to other participants in the economy. This means when someone loses their coins in a disastrous way, say they left a seed in LastPass and they didn't know that they weren't supposed to type their seed into their computer, for free. Obviously the person who lost the Bitcoin suffers, but for free, the entire economy gets to learn that that is not something you should do. And this process goes over and over with all of our actions, and teaches other people ways that they can better their situation. And so when you develop good things, now others know about good things. And Mises, I won't read this whole quote, but Mises also points out that you don't even get to decide who specifically benefits from these things, because the economy is just a whole global market. And so these gratuitous goods are literally just going out into the world, and you are freely bestowing them upon people by virtue of the economic production increases that occur from your increased hodlings. So put simply, you hodling makes everyone wealthier. This means even the person who does not stack or hodl at all gets to enjoy the fruits of a growing economy running on the best money in history. Being early to Bitcoin is a blessing, but being late to Bitcoin is not a curse. Those people still get to enjoy the fruits of you having hodled. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about leaving a legacy. Now, typically this is talked about in the context of family, a very important and noble venture that I highly recommend to people. But I want to talk about a particular part of that. And one of the things I want to point out is Bitcoin is forever, but your Bitcoin is not. You can't not spend Bitcoin like we talked about already. You do have to eat. And as money goes down through generations, it's possible that it gets diluted, it gets lost, it gets spent. And through the generations, it finally dissipates into just sort of the broad economy. Now, you can just go ahead and burn all of your coins. I know there are people who talk about doing that. But I would warn you that your grandchildren would hate you for it. And they do matter too. Your grandchildren do matter. So I want to talk about another way that we can kind of add into this discussion of legacy based on what we've already talked about. And I specifically want to talk about the virtue of magnificence. Cicero says, magnificence is the consideration and management of important and sublime matters with a certain wide-seeing and splendid determination of mind. So when you've gone through, a process of contemplation and study, while at leisure, and you've come to a vision of the world, not only do you have a vision of what the world is, but also a meeting of that mind with will to actually make it happen. St. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa says that expenditure is the outlay of money. In order to do something magnificent, to make a great work that is magnificent, you have to spend in order to do that. And he points out that, there's the side of it, the actual act of doing it, and there's the output of the great work. But importantly, there is that expenditure. And in fact, you cannot have magnificence if you don't have a lot of savings that you can put towards a great work. So magnificence as a virtue is literally impossible without previous savings, just like all other economic production. And he says, the love of money, which the magnificent man moderates, lest he be hindered from spending too much. So if someone puts Bitcoin itself above all of life itself, then they will be unable to let go of it. But if we understand Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, it is meant for indirect future exchange. We don't know when that's going to be. Maybe that's generations down the line. But if we understand it to be for indirect exchange, we know at its heart, the purpose of Bitcoin is as a tool because we want to use it to do greater things in the world. Aristotle also says, the magnificent man is like an artist, for he can see what is fitting and spend large sums tastefully. So I say, build things that outlast your Bitcoin. Be able to spend the time engaged in leisure to figure out what are the capital goods I need, what are the ideas I need, what are the things that I want out of the world, so that I can focus my economic energy with pure laser eyes on the things that matter most, so that you can create things that outlast the memory of your particular UXTOs in your particular wallet. You want to make things that feel as essential to humanity as Bitcoin itself. Whether it's Beethoven's Ninths or Brunelleschi's Dome here, have a greater vision of what can be done with that Bitcoin. Last thing I want to bring everything together is, people hodl. The reason people hodl is for their individual benefit. And you may choose to depict it as greedy or selfish hoarding, but you can't pretend that it's not in their rational self-interest. People have a totally reasonable reason to save as much as they can right now. And to do so ignores the grand, harmonious social coordination and benefits that emerge from that foundation of individual savings. The entirety of the division of labor and capital accumulation begins with the simple hodler looking out for a better tomorrow, and the jewels of civilization are cut and carved by the economic outputs and opportunities that this gifts to us all. So instead, whenever you hear someone, looking at hodling as simply selfish or whatever, remember what Bastiat says: all men's impulses, when motivated by legitimate self-interest, fall into a harmonious social pattern. And that is what we see today. And Bitcoin truly is a new foundational pillar of civilization itself, and we can take it to that full extent if you have the vision for it. Here's some references for those who might be interested in what I was talking about. And otherwise, like I said, I run the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. Help us build a magnificent institution to pass on Bitcoin knowledge to future generations. You can visit the website, study hard, make it part of your leisure time studying, and try to help craft a vision of what Bitcoin could be. And feel free to help us in our journey to try to extend this message more broadly. Thank you.